Hey guys, what's going on and welcome back. So if you guys saw my last video, you saw that I blew my blow-off valve clean off the car. I have since fixed the issue. It was actually my bad. The snap ring was not seated well enough. Somebody recommended that I Dremel it out. His name escapes me right now, but I appreciate your suggestion. I ended up getting it in after a lot of messing with it with needle nose vice grips, and I put a nut in here and then I squeezed it down and I was able to snap it in, but I realized it never truly was snapped in, and it really always was a boost leak because I could turn it, which means it wasn't sealing well. So should be much better now. I do want to smoke test this thing. I think I'll do that at work at some point. I did end up having an issue where I lost whatever valve was on here. I think that flew off the same time the blow-off valve did, or maybe not. I'm not sure why I had such a surge. Whether this thing failed or it blew off, or maybe this thing blew off a long time ago. But I put a new vacuum line on there, and I'm going to cut the zip tie obviously. But that guy is all sealed off along with this one with another port here. So just got to make sure that all these ports stay plugged, because that's super important. So I want to take this time to do something that I've always wanted to do, and I want to delete the actual EGR itself. And so if I do delete the EGR, my next plan would be to use this plug here, which is one of the pinouts on the ECU, and it should be A11 on the ECU. So I want to find out which is A11 and which goes to the EGR here, and I'm going to run something off of this factory pin. I'm going to tap into that, and I'm going to run that to a manual boost controller that I got. Actually got this today. So this is a 3-port boost controller. There are 4 ports, which are better. I'm not sure if I can run that with Honda Tuning Suite, but I know for a fact I can run a 3-port, so that's pretty cool. I have your positive and negative here. So one of them is going to be our pulse width modulated signal from the ECU. So I truly don't know what I'm doing with this. I have a basic idea of how to wire this up and how to plumb it, but basically this line on the bottom is going to go in place of this boost controller here where I screw the dial. And the reason you want to go with an actual 3-port versus this standard like 2-port guy here is because this guy is always open. So when you are trying to spool, this guy is always throwing pressure into here, and even as you increase in boost, that is actually going to lift the wastegate and open the valve slightly at lower boost levels on your way when you're ramping up into boost. And that's kind of the issue with this system here, is this is always vented, and so this thing's always bleeding off that pressure, and so that's kind of another issue. So basically, when you get a 3-port, you eliminate this being always open, and this guy doesn't actually open until he sees a certain boost pressure here, and then once you actually hit that boost pressure, then this guy is going to go ahead and give us what we want and open the other side fully. So hopefully that all makes sense. It's kind of tough to explain, but I'll explain it better in the video where I wire this up. But right now, my first plan is to delete the EGR, which I've wanted to do for a while. So this thing right here is EGR related as well. This is some sort of vacuum and solenoid, vacuum diaphragm and solenoid for the EGR, and that actually runs the EGR or makes sure that the EGR is actually running itself. I think it stores vacuum for it or something. So I'm not entirely sure on that crap, but I do want to get rid of it. So if I get rid of this, I can get rid of this as well. And I'm going to have to see what this A11 pin is, and I'm going to get rid of this too. And I do have a billet cover for the EGR port here. So I just got to block that off and block off this vacuum line here, and then rip all this stuff out. And then the EGR will be deleted. So I'm going to go ahead and get to work on deleting this EGR as we speak here. So I'm going to find my block off plate, and I think I'm just going to use the gasket that is there right now, and I'm going to go ahead and throw the billet block off plate on. So I went ahead and took off the EGR. You can see just the gasket is sitting there. That gasket should still be good. It doesn't look like it's blown out. It looks like it's not leaking at all. So this is the block off plate. Nice billet. Comes with some recessed spots here and a couple of Allens. So this is the EGR, just a couple of 12s, and you take off those, pop off this vacuum line, and this connector right here. It's a nice 3-pin, and that's it. Pretty much all there is to it. So yeah, this guy I've taken off in the past, and I cleaned off the surface and the gasket and everything, and made sure that this thing was working good and cleaned it out. But right now we're going to delete it, and we'll see how it runs. I doubt it'll run any different. Cylinder temperatures might be a little more without introducing exhaust gases, but this is mainly an emissions thing, and it's really just probably slowing us down. So should be better off without it, and we'll be able to use that A11 pin out for our boost controller, and we'll get to have this nice shiny block off port on there. So I'm going to go ahead and get this guy put on. Alright guys, so it is the following day, and I'll show you guys what I got to last night. Maybe I should have time-lapsed it, but I spent an awful long time working on it and had like somewhat of a successful time. I'm getting a flashlight here, but basically I needed to remove these studs here. Once I took off the EGR, I had to take these studs out, and I thought that it was going to be a lot easier than it ended up being, but essentially what I have here is one stud that's out and one stud that is not out. So I'm going to attempt to, I got a stud extractor, brought it home from work, and so I'm going to go ahead and tap it on here and try to remove this stud. If you don't have a stud extractor, you're probably going to have a tough time with this like I did. But I ended up putting a nut on. I was trying to double nut it. If you have two nuts and you can double nut it, I ended up taking the ignition, the igniter all off and everything in the bracket here, and I have one out of the one bolt out of the water pump, or not water pump, but the thermostat housing here. So hopefully no leaks or anything like that, but it looks like it's fine. So this EGR stud here is really going to be the death of me. So hopefully it doesn't pain us too much longer. I'm going to go ahead and tap that thing on there and see if we can back this guy out. Alright guys, so I'm going to attempt to heat this up a little bit with some MAP gas, just because I think that might be my only shot at getting this. It is pretty difficult for me to get to. So I'm going to heat up the ear here a little bit. Hopefully that added heat. I think we're stripping out our extractor, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna work. Oh, we got it. We got it. That's sweet. So it worked. I ended up using the other extractor. I think it was a little bit less worn out, but that flame heated up the aluminum nicely, and we were able to get it loose. So that's one trick that you can use to get these studs out. So now the rest of our job is pretty easy. I'm just going to clean off that surface there a little bit, make sure that I don't drop this down inside. I think it's pretty well stuck on the extractor, but yeah, there we go. That is the stud, and so we got it out. That's the second one, so we're ready to go here. So we'll use our gasket and we'll put our block off plate on there. And hopefully these are the correct thread pitch. And it looks like they are threading in, so that is good. So I figured I would at least test to see if our solenoid actually works here, or our 3-port boost controller. So you can see that I have it all hooked up here. I got power and ground. Ground I ran down to the engine ground down there. And if I take this, which I have hooked up to the positive on the solenoid, and I hit it to, I tap it to the positive wire here, you'll hear it click. So that is it engaging and disengaging. Very basic solenoid, it's just open and close, so that is that. But we can vary the resistance on the line and hopefully vary the amount open or closed that this thing is, and that is the goal. So with that ground hooked up there and me hooking this up to this black wire here, which I've yet to strip, that comes from that black and white wire on the EGR plug, which I tucked down here. But this EGR plug that we had, there's a black and white wire on that 3-wire plug. So I tapped into that wire, and that wire actually runs down onto the ECU. And I was able to get a pin out on my phone, but the ECU is back here, and it's connector D. And if you guys look up a pin out, it's connector D. I'm not going to pull it all out again because I almost ripped all the wires out and stuff last time. But I really need to fully mount the fuse block on, inside the glove box and stuff like that. But I'm just saving that for when the car is done, but that'll never happen. You guys know. But anyway, this right here is the settings that we have. And to be honest, I'm really not sure what to do. But I do like a challenge, and I will figure it out eventually. I just gotta mess with it. So I do know that our output here is A11 as the EGR, and A11 is the pinout on the P28 ECU, but that is going to correspond to something different if you have a different vehicle. So I have an OBD2 vehicle here. So what I did is I found the pinout and found the EGR valve pinout, and I was able to find the wire that went from the ECU to the EGR. So I hope that that is my A11 equivalent here, and I hope that that triggers it. I'm not really sure if it will. If it doesn't, then maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree. Okay guys, so it's been one day. I spent last night kind of messing with the car, and I really came to no conclusions. I was trying to figure out exactly how to power this thing and just try to hear the solenoid clicking, just so that I knew that it was working and that I had it wired correctly on the correct pin and everything. And I was totally barking up the wrong tree. I was doing the wrong thing entirely. So I did some research last night and a little bit more tonight when I got home, and I found out not only do I not have did I not have it wired correctly initially, but then I fixed that and it still wasn't working. And the issue actually ended up being that I don't have that in my ECU, I don't believe. So I still need to check, but I know that I just bought a chipped P28 ECU, so it came socketed, and I know that it came with, there were common failure capacitors and stuff like that, and those were replaced, and I think that was about it. Oh, and it had data logging port put in for me. So data logging port and chipped and socketed. It had a chip in it, but also I just put the ostrich in the socket, and that's what I actually used to tune it. But anyway, I should make a new tuning video on how I actually tune this thing. I'll show you guys the setup right now actually. I don't know, I guess maybe it'll get lost in this video, but for now I'm not going to be able to do it because basically there are specific components in the ECU, and those components in the ECU allow you to make that PWM signal that you send to your boost controller. So there's supposed to be a specific transistor in here, and I think it is supposed to be over in this location right here. I don't know if you can see that too well, but it's supposed to be right here. D14, D14Q29, and R70, R71, and Q33. And then there's another one over here that's Q20. And there's some stuff that you have to put in those locations. And then you can tap into this A11 right here, which I cut. That was right here going to, it's the 6th pin over on the top. If you're looking at it like this, in this direction with the largest pin, which is pin A on this P28 ECU, or connector A rather, and pin A11, which it's the numbers go top bottom, so it's like 6 over is 11 here, so it's A11, and that pin right there, I ran that wire all the way out to the front of the vehicle out here, and that's what I'm going to run. I still have to figure out whether that, I believe it's a switch ground, or at least that's what I was led to believe last night, but I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to have to do a little more research whether or not I need to take that wire and send it to the positive and then ground the other wire, or do I send the other wire to constant power and have this one be the switched ground? I'm not exactly sure yet, so I got to figure that out. But I do know that I don't have the components on my ECU to actually run a PWM pulse width modulated boost controller, so I need to order that. And the kit's about $10, which is not the end of the world, so I'm going to go ahead and get that kit ordered, and hopefully once we get that, we'll be able to solder that into the ECU, and I'll show you guys that process as well. And then we can have a boost controller, hopefully. If this one doesn't work, then I'll just buy an actual boost controller and wire that one up, and that one will definitely work. There is a feature in Honda Tuning Suite, there is a way to make it work. I'll eventually get it to work, but I think I'd like to try to make it work with this one that I got, so that'll be pretty cool. Anyway, stick around for that, guys. It'll be in a future video, but I think I'm going to cap it off here. I'm going to do a little more buffing, wash the car down, clean all the door jambs and everything, and then, I'm going to hopefully get the next stage painted pretty soon, and then I can get this car back together. But hopefully within the next few weeks, I get the rest of it all painted. I'm trying to get some parts from the junkyard tomorrow, but hopefully I'm able to get what I need, and then I can sand that, prime it, and paint it all in one shot. And that way the car will just be ready to go back together beside the moldings, which I'll still have to paint. But I'll get that done too, and eventually this car will be done. But I'm trying to do everything at the same time. I got to try to balance the mechanical work and the body work and making the videos, so hopefully you guys are enjoying. If you made it all the way to the end here, then definitely subscribe. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support. The channel seems like it's really growing fast. Now that the car is painted, I feel like it actually looks decent. I can take some good thumbnails and stuff like that. It doesn't just look like a primered Honda. So I'm excited. I can't wait to get it done, guys. And yeah, thanks for sticking with me. But I know I've talked a lot, but have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one.